The hall went silent. Not polite silence, not curious silence, the kind that slices through chandeliers and silk dresses. "Take the pretty one," Lord Hawthorne demanded, his voice sharp enough to draw blood. Everyone turned. Elena stood where she always stood, center stage. Perfect posture, perfect smile, perfect daughter. Beside her, barely noticed, stood her sister, Clara. Plain dress, downcast eyes. Already dismissed. The Duke didn't answer right away. He stepped forward, past Elena, past the murmurs, past the father's command, and stopped in front of the girl no one had chosen. Gasps rippled across the room. Lord Hawthorne's face tightened. "Her," he snapped. The Duke lifted Clara's chin gently and said yes, because he had seen something no one else dared to notice. "Don't blink. Stay with us. What happens next will change everything." Lord Hawthorne ruled his estate, the way he ruled his daughters, by measurement and control. Elena, the elder, was his investment, trained to smile, taught to perform. Every compliment carefully rehearsed, every laugh timed. She was beauty polished into currency. Clara was the remainder, born quieter, softer, too thoughtful for a man who valued display over depth. He dressed her plainly, spoke over her, introduced her last, if at all. In a household of mirrors, she learned to disappear. Tonight's gathering filled the grand manor with dukes, ladies, and whispering witnesses. This was not a party. It was a transaction. The Duke of Ravenshire had come to choose a bride. Wealth met title. Title met power. And Clara stood near the column, fingers clasped, listening as her own worth was decided aloud. What no one knew, what Lord Hawthorne never bothered to ask, was that Clara listened closely, remembered everything, and carried a mind sharper than anyone in that room. The Duke moved through the room slowly, measured steps echoing against marble floors. His gaze followed Elena as she laughed too loudly, tilted her chin just enough, performed exactly as she had been trained. Lord Hawthorne hovered beside him, voice low but eager. "She's everything a man of your standing deserves," he said. "Grace, beauty, obedience." Elena smiled on cue. Clara stayed still, invisible, but watching. The Duke asked questions about lineage, about charity work, about obedience masked as tradition. Elena answered smoothly, but something was missing. Her words were perfect, too perfect, empty. Then the Duke's eyes drifted to the column, to the girl in the plain blue dress, to Clara. "Who is she?" he asked. Lord Hawthorne stiffened. "My younger daughter. She's not relevant." Clara felt the sting land publicly. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. Others smirked. Power enjoyed its audience. But the Duke didn't look away. He crossed the room, stopped in front of Clara. "What do you enjoy?" he asked her directly. The room froze. Clara swallowed, then spoke, quiet, steady. "Listening," she said. "People say more when they think you don't matter." A ripple moved through the crowd. Elena's smile cracked. The Duke asked more, about books, about land stewardship, about responsibility. Clara answered without performance, without polish, only truth. She spoke of crops failing when owners ignore soil, of people breaking when treated like ornaments. Lord Hawthorne interrupted sharply. "That's enough." But the Duke raised a hand and smiled, not at beauty, but at depth. Clara noticed something else then. Papers on the Duke's table, maps, numbers. A kingdom struggling under mismanagement. She leaned in slightly. "You don't need decoration," she said softly. "You need someone who tells you when something is rotting." Silence, because she was right, and everyone felt it. Lord Hawthorne's jaw tightened. The transaction was slipping, and the choice was no longer his. The Duke turned, slowly, not toward Elena, not toward Lord Hawthorne, toward the crowd. This, he said calmly, was supposed to be simple. A murmur spread. Silk rustled. Glasses paused midair. Lord Hawthorne forced a laugh. "Your Grace, surely you understand. Alliances are built on appearances." The Duke nodded once. "Yes, and empires collapse because of them." He stepped forward, placing the parchment of intent back onto the long table. The seal was unbroken. Then he did something no one expected. He asked Clara to sit. Gasps. Sharp. Uncontrolled. Elena's face drained of color. "This is a joke," she whispered. "Father." But Lord Hawthorne couldn't speak. His authority, so carefully constructed, was crumbling in public. The Duke addressed the room. "I've spent years repairing land ruined by men who chose beauty over truth," he said. "Fields starved because no one listened. People suffered because no one asked the quiet ones what they saw." He turned to Clara. "You noticed rot," he said. "Not in the soil, in the system." Clara's hands trembled, but her voice didn't. "You asked to be chosen," she said gently. "I never asked to be spared." That was it. That was the line that broke the room. The Duke lifted the parchment, tore it cleanly in half. Elena cried out. A chair scraped harshly. Guests stood instinctively, unsure whether to applaud or flee. Lord Hawthorne exploded. "You will not humiliate my family like this." The Duke looked at him, cold now. "Final." "No," he replied. "You did that yourself." Then he reached for a new document. A formal declaration. "I choose Clara Hawthorne," he said clearly. "Not as an ornament, not as a consolation, but as a partner." Silence. Thick, crushing. Elena collapsed into a seat, sobbing, not from heartbreak, but from shock at losing a role she thought was guaranteed. Clara stood frozen, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. The Duke offered his arm. "For the first time," he said softly, "the rejected sister is the only honest choice in the room." And history shifted, right there between two breaths. The weeks that followed rewrote everything. Lord Hawthorne's influence didn't vanish overnight, but it cracked, quietly, permanently. Invitations stopped arriving. Partnerships dissolved without explanation. The same society that once nodded at his cruelty now avoided his gaze. Elena left the estate before winter. No scandal, no farewell, just absence. Clara remained. Not hidden anymore. She walked beside the Duke through frost-covered fields and council halls that once terrified her. She spoke when maps were discussed. She listened when farmers complained. She asked questions no one else thought mattered. And slowly, land healed. So did people. The Duke never corrected anyone who underestimated her. He let them learn the hard way. At the spring assembly, when Clara stood at the podium, back straight, voice steady, the room listened. Not because of her title, but because she had earned it. A former servant approached her afterward, eyes wet. "You made them see us," she whispered. Clara smiled gently. "They always could," she said. "They just chose not to." Justice didn't arrive with thunder. It came with truth, with choice, with dignity reclaimed. And somewhere, in a hall once ruled by appearance and silence, a new standard took root. That worth is not decided by who shines the brightest, but by who stands when no one is watching. The Duke looked at Clara that evening as the sun fell across the estate. "You changed this place," he said. She shook her head. "No," she replied softly. "You just finally chose to see." And in that choice, a rejected sister became a future no one could ignore.